Welcome to Pen and Perspective, where the story always knows more than it's telling. Every word is intentional, every silence holds a truth. Let's get into it. They said I always had something to say, so I stopped saying anything. The last real conversation we had started over Thanksgiving, my mom wanted to host again. Same house, same setup, same stress. Too many people, not enough space. And by the end of the night, everybody irritated like it wasn't predictable. So I said, why don't we just rent a space this year? Nothing extra, just something that made sense. I even said I'd handle it. Find it, book it, make it easy. My aunt laughed, not loud, just enough, and said, you always doing the most. A couple people smiled, like it was light. I said, I'm not doing the most. I'm trying to make it easier. My cousin said, it'd be smoother when you just let stuff happen. I looked at her. Then I said, so I'm not supposed to say nothing? My mom didn't hesitate. She said, you always got something to say. That was it. I looked around the room and nobody checked it. Nobody corrected it. So I said, y'all don't want me to have an opinion. Y'all just want me to agree. Silence. I said, I'm not doing that. And I left. After that, I didn't disappear. I adjusted. I still showed up, still answered calls, still came around. I just stopped offering anything, no suggestions, no problem solving, no stepping in before something went wrong. Thanksgiving came, and it went exactly how it always goes when nobody wants to listen. Food wasn't ready on time. People waiting around asking what was done and what wasn't. Somebody forgot something they swore they had. Not enough seating, same cycle. Nobody asked me nothing, and I didn't offer nothing. I sat there, ate, and watched it play out. You could feel it though, that quiet tension, like people were waiting for me to say something, fix it, step in. I didn't. A couple weeks later, I was with my cousins. One of them was trying to figure out if she should stay where she was or move somewhere cheaper, going back and forth, talking in circles. Normally, I would have helped her figure that out, asked the right questions, pointed out what she wasn't seeing. I didn't say nothing. She looked at me and said, you real quiet. I said, yeah. She said, you usually got something to say. I said, and that was the problem. She frowned and I said, I always got something to say. It's better when you just let stuff happen, right? She laughed, like I was joking. I wasn't. A couple weeks after that, she told me she stayed where she was, said it would work itself out. It didn't. She ended up more stressed than she was before, more stuck. At one point, she said, I probably should have asked you. I said, you could have? And left it there. Then it got more direct. My mom called me one day and I said, why are you acting like this? And I said, like what? She said, you're not helping with nothing. I said, I'm not doing anything different. She said, you know what I mean? I said, y'all said I always got something to say. So now I don't. She paused and then said, that's not what we meant. I said, that's what you said. She didn't have nothing to say after that. A few days later, they called a family meeting. We all sitting in the living room like something serious happened. My mom started it, talking about how things feel off, how I've been distant. I said, I'm right here. My brother said, you know what we mean? I said, no, I don't. Say it. He looked at my mom and then said, you always gotta correct stuff. There it was. I said, correct what? He said everything, plans, decisions, how stuff should be done. I said, so when I suggest something, that's correcting? He said, it feel like that. My aunt jumped in and said, it feel like you don't trust us to figure stuff out. I nodded slowly and then I said, so you want to figure things out on your own? My mom said, yes, sometimes. I said, okay. Then I asked, so when things don't get figured out, what happens? Nobody answered that. My brother said, we not saying don't help. There it go. I said, so you want my help? He said, yeah. I said, just not my input. Silence. My aunt said, not all the time. I looked at her, said, when? She didn't answer. So I said it for them. You want me to step in when it's falling apart? But you don't want me to say nothing before it gets there. Nobody argued that because that's exactly what it was. My mom tried to soften it and said, we just don't want everything to turn into a whole thing. I said, it turns into a whole thing when it's already a problem. That landed. My brother said, you just got to let people learn. I nodded. Then I said, okay, then that's what I'm doing. He frowned, said, not like that. I said, what other way is there? Nobody had an answer, so I stood up. I'm letting things happen. I'm not correcting. I'm not stepping in early. I'm not doing the most. I grab my keys, and when it don't go right, that's part of learning, right? Nobody stopped me, and that told me everything. A couple months went by like that. Christmas came, and it was fine. Not chaotic, not perfect, just fine. Everybody brought what they were supposed to bring. Everybody handled their part. Nobody overwhelmed. Nobody overcompensating. And me? I showed up, brought what I was told to bring, ate, left. No pressure. No responsibility that didn't belong to me. My mom texted me about Easter. Said, we getting together to plan this weekend. You coming? I stared at the message for a second. Then I called her instead. She picked up quick, like she'd been waiting. I said, y'all can just let me know what to bring. Pause. She said, why would you do that? I said, because that's how y'all want it. She let out a breath, said, we've been over this. I said, no, we haven't. Another pause, longer this time. She said, you're really still on that? I said, I'm not on anything. I adjusted. She didn't like that. I could hear it. She said, so you're just not going to help anymore? I said, I am helping. I'm showing up. I'm bringing what y'all asked me to bring. I'm just not doing the part y'all had a problem with. She said, that's not what we had a problem with. I said, then what did you have a problem with? Silence. I let it sit. Didn't rush to fill it. Then I said it. Y'all don't want me to have an opinion. You don't want me saying anything before something goes wrong. You just want me to come in after and fix it. She said, that's not fair. I said, it's accurate. She got quiet. Then her voice shifted, softer, but hurt. She said, so what? You punishing us now? I shook my head even though she couldn't see me. I'm not punishing anybody. I just don't want to be moved like that. She didn't say anything, so I kept going. I don't want to be the reason people get irritated. I don't want to be the one y'all say is doing too much, but then still be the one y'all call when it don't go right. She said, that's not how we see you. I said, that's how it feels. That landed. I said, and I don't want to feel like that in my own family. She tried again. You know we love you. I said, I know. Then I said, but sometimes it feels like you love what I do more than you love how I show up. That one hurt her. I could hear it. She said, how could you say that? I didn't raise my voice. It didn't get emotional. I'm saying it because it's true for me. Silence. I said, it feels wrong to know I can help prevent something and be told not to say nothing, but still be expected to step in when it falls apart. She didn't argue that. I said, I don't want to be in that position. Another pause. Then she said, so what are you saying? I said it clean. I'm going to keep doing exactly what I've been doing. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be around. I'm just not stepping into that role anymore. She said, that's your family. I said, and I'm still here. That stopped her. I said, I'm just here differently. She didn't say anything after that, so I finished it. It feels good not having to carry stuff that's not mine. That part was quiet, but it was real. She didn't fight me on it. She just said, we'll let you know what to bring. I said, all right. And that was it. Easter came, and everything ran. Not perfect, not chaotic, just handled. Everybody brought what they were supposed to. Everybody did their part. And me? I showed up, ate, talked, no pressure, no tension sitting on my shoulders, no feeling like I had to fix anything. Dinner had already settled, plates pushed back, people talking in smaller groups, nothing dramatic. And that's when my uncle called my name and said, "Come here for a second." I already knew what it was, and I walked over anyway. My mom was there, my aunt, my brother, a couple of my cousins. Not everybody, just the ones who had something to do with it. My uncle didn't ease into it, and he said, "We was wrong," just like that. No explanation, no buildup. I looked at him, didn't say nothing. My aunt spoke next and said, "We shouldn't have said that to you like that." My cousin added, "We made it seem like you was the problem." I nodded. Because, yeah, that's exactly what they did. My brother shifted a little, then said, "I didn't realize how much you was actually doing until you stopped." My mom didn't interrupt him this time. She just said, "We got comfortable." That word again, comfortable. My uncle said, "Things ain't been as smooth." My cousin said, "We had to figure stuff out the hard way." I said, "That's usually how it works." Nobody laughed. Then my mom said it. She said, "We want things to go back to how they were." There it go. I looked at all of them, one by one, and I didn't rush my answer. I said, "That's not available anymore." Silence. Not shocked, just quiet. My aunt said, "Why not? We're saying we get it now." I nodded. "I hear that." My brother said, "So what? You just gonna stay like this forever?" I said, "I'm not like anything. I just move different." My uncle said, "We're not asking you to carry everything." I said, "That's not the point." I looked at my mom and I said, "The point is, I don't ever want to be in a position again where what I bring to the table is a problem until it's needed." Nobody said nothing, so I kept going. I don't want to have to shrink how I show up just to make everybody comfortable and then still be expected to fix it when it falls apart. My mom looked at me like that part hurt. She said, "That's not how we see you." I said, "That's how it felt." That landed. My cousin said, "So what does it look like now?" I answered that easy. "It looks like what y'all just had." I gestured around. Everybody doing their part. Everybody figuring their own stuff out. No one person holding everything together. My uncle nodded slowly. My brother didn't say nothing, but he heard it. My mom asked one more time, "So there's no going back?" I shook my head. "No." Then I softened it just enough. "But I'm still here." That mattered because I wasn't cutting them off. I was just not stepping back into that role. My aunt said, "It's different." I said, "It's supposed to be." And that was it. Nobody argued. Nobody tried to push it further because for the first time, everybody understood what the cost of that old version of me actually was and that it wasn't coming back. You've been listening to Pen and Perspective. If it sat in your spirit, let it linger. If it stirred something in you, don't ignore it. I'm Miana DK. And before I put my pen down, tell me, whose perspective should I sit with next?